cash crisis worse. About Venezuela once again to make important thanks. They removed the 1,000 thing on here called monetary awareness.
All right, we are live for a Tuesday edition of RTD News Update, and came across a lot of articles that was worth bringing to your attention. Of course, more noise than ever. But once again, I want to just share with you this visual aid behind me here, where you guys can see here, June 1st. As of now, based upon the current expenditures of our government, we will be in the negative. And it just seems that between the Congress being offered satellite phones in case of a disruptive event, what better way to, I guess, create or bring in or institute a event other than allowing this bipartisan left-right not being able to come to an agreement when something needs to be done. And the only thing that can be done is continue to kick the can down the road. So how hard is it to kick the can down the road? So once again, this is a strategically done bipartisan disruptive event that we're witnessing right now. And based upon this current balance sheet right here, if we get to the point where something is not paid and they have to go to some type of emergency measures, what better way to bring in a planned event outside of just the debt ceiling? Debt ceiling is just it's being used as an excuse to where governments can't come to an agreement so that they can trigger an event. And of course, I got some thoughts on what type of events we could be. And by satellite phones going out would let me know that it might be something to do with telecommunications, cyber event, you name it. So we'll get to that. But anyway, hope everyone's doing well. As always, won't be long. Just want to check in. I got 8 or 9 or so headlines, all worth all worth your attention, I believe, outside of what you guys have been already paying attention to. So for those who might be new to the community, welcome. My name is Mike, the host, RTD #1 news update. And for those who are watching, hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. Hopefully that helps more people get notified and be able to join and share their 2 cents, whether it be in the chat or when we do our live streams in the evening via the phones. So before I move forward, I want to make sure I acknowledge and make sure I just put everything out here. As I mentioned, hit that thumbs up button. If you find any value here, please share this so more people can come across an alternative perspective on what's really happening out here. And also want to encourage you guys to connect with RTD on all these social platforms here, just in case we're disrupted here. But we'll dive into that. So anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Let me just jump right into headlines, man. So here's something that caught my attention that I was not aware of until I think it was yesterday I saw this. And so right now with all this chat GTP, Mid-Journey, AI creation stuff, you can't really tell what's real. And I think as of now, yesterday, a alleged explosion by the Capitol building led to the markets tanking just slightly. And of course, it recovered, but they're going to use this as a way of saying that we need to impose restrictions, regulation on this technology because it can be disruptive in and of itself. But here's something, and just from what I gathered, it was fact-checked by a major news source, but it just flew by the radar. But this was as of last week, but it all has to do with what's currently going on now, I think. And it says American flag upside down over U.S. Capitol. And so as I scroll through this, so this came from a DC Drano who has a pretty large following. He's a social media person, but he posted a picture last week of what looks like here, the American flag flown upside down. And of course, whenever the flag is flown upside down, it's a sign of distress. And God knows our country, this globe, this planet is in distress right now due to the craziness going on. But real quick here, it says U.S. flag currently flying upside down over Senate building, signaling distress and needing rescue. Oops, let me go back here. So this is his original post here. But it says some believe it was flipped after Senator Fetterman spoke with the sophistication of a drunk toddler in a hearing today. So as I mentioned, this was last week, but image here shows a flag flying upside down. And that right there, to me, just no coincidence, no accidents. It's if this is a valid picture from a valid source. Because as I mentioned, at this current moment, you can't really believe anything you see just because technology is making it very hard to believe a lot of things these days. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was correct and it did happen and it flew under the radar because distress, what better way to describe what we're currently experiencing right now? But to move on to more issues, the debt ceiling is the primary focus of pretty much all news sources. And they're making sure that we do not get a chance to take a day off from being told about how the left and right can't come to an agreement. And so here's a headline that just came out this morning about a meeting that took place about an hour ago So it's good to say my suspicion is that nothing came from it of value. But it says GOP White House remain far apart on a debt deal. Treasurer asks agencies about delayed payments. So no deal, far apart. And a lot of it has to do with the budget for next year's budget, of which the Democrats want to expend unlimited. Republicans want to restrict certain expenditures. So it's that back and forth. But then again, they're doing this intentionally, in my opinion, because of the events that will follow. And to keep it moving real quick, here it says Treasury confirms U.S. default as early as June 1st without a debt ceiling hike. Yeah, not being able to pay those bills. Ain't that something? And so here is that image that I want to share with you. And so this is from, let me go back here so I can zoom in more. And so Genevieve Roach posted this, but it was from a Clive Thompson who put it together. So as you guys can see here, this is currently where we stand. I think as of, it says Treasury has 60 billion left. U.S. default is possible this Friday, referring to June 1st. It says if spending continues at the current elevated pace, the balance will be negative 18 billion by Friday. How can you go negative when there's nothing really there? That's my question. But it's good to say they'll find a way to do something. But my point was, reason I brought this to your guys' attention is that if June 1st is the doomsday X day to where if the Treasury runs out of funds to just basically just make due on payments currently, and you have all of these other events happening right now, we had the BRICS, not the BRICS, but I'm sorry, the G7 meeting in Japan last week. All 7 of the nations got together with Zelensky there as well, trying to talk about CBDCs as well as crypto regulation, all that other stuff. Okay, sure, on top of things we don't know about. Then you had China and the Eastern Asian nations coming together, talking about making plans for things. And then we had the Arab leagues getting together as well, coming together, talking about the plans they have for the future. All these meetings and agreements and summits, they're all strategically working and planning on something. It's just the average Joe who's left out in the cold, not knowing much of anything. But with all these signs, it lets us know that things are happening fast and something is about to occur. That will be a disruptive event. And so let's get into that more. Okay, so let me see here. Got ahead of myself here. So this is what was very concerning that it came out yesterday. And I meant to chime in on it, but didn't have time. But it says, report confirms dozens of senators are being issued taxpayer-funded satellite phones in preparation for a, quote, disruptive event. And so with this bipartisan standoff, left-right paradigm, them all working towards the same goal, ultimately, could this disruptive event be the immediate or not the immediate, but the follow-up of a default or something to do with the debt in general? Like it probably won't be a debt default, but it'll be something associated with that. And then the results of a debt default would then lead to events like this, where it says the White House has warned stocks will plunge 45% and a deep recession will strike in the third quarter if the U.S. defaults. So could there be a disruptive event that would lead to telecommunications going out? And then we all know about the cyber polygon event that's been practiced every year for the last couple of years, leading up to some type of event that they have already staged and have planned. But could these satellite phones be for that event? I don't know. But here's something on Twitter from the Big Mig, that I came across that put together 3 little bullet points of things that he's concerned about. It says something is rotten in Denmark. Share this far and wide. It says explosives, 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate, a chemical used in explosive, just vanished into thin air. 1. 2, encrypted sat phones. He says now 50 senators in Washington, D.C. receive encrypted cellular sat phones in case communications are disrupted by why only 50 senators why not all 100 of them? So that's a good question. So 100 was available, but only 50 accepted. So we'll find out. And then the third point here says now this just in. A source who works for Mayo Clinic just told my source that the hospital is seeking among its staff, quote, volunteer amateur radio operators to assist with the communications during emergencies when official internal and external communications are not available. It says, notice this says that, quote, when, not if communications are not available. The document reference was posted by the Mayo employee portal on May 18th. So you have not if, but when telecommunications, internal and external, are not available. So what does that mean? That means that, like I've been saying for some time, the continuation of events are just are piling up to where the debt ceiling is a cover up, in my opinion, for something that they want to institute, and they'll be able to look and blame the other side of the aisle for not being able to come to some type of understanding, some type of agreement, while ultimately them wanting another domino to fall so it can take us closer to their objective. Because at the end of the day, left, right, the majority of those politicians, they're all in sync with the UN WEF private partnership agreements is underway with the whole Build Back Better scenario. So very few of them, in my opinion, are actually working in the best interest of us as citizens here. So I believe that they are strategically stalling and drawing this thing out to make it much bigger than it is so that they can use it as a reason to then trigger some type of event. And that event can be blamed on whoever they might want to blame it on. Of course, mind you, the Russians are still the bad guys, according to the globalists. So who knows? But these are just some concerns that people have out here that are definitely worth keeping an eye on. But the news don't stop there. It doesn't stop there. So let me just share with you, outside of this is just the Western Hemisphere primary issues that's making the headlines right now. On top of the stock market being down right now, the bond market, of course, is showing stress as well. And so let me share with you some other things that caught my attention. So here's a visual aid or a little visual map showing the recent uptick in nations that have all either officially applied or in the process of applying to join the BRICS nations. So all these countries in red have ultimately made a choice to shift towards the east, and in the middle of that shift happens to be the Federal Reserve SWIFT system / aka dollarization of the world that they are also looking to get away from. And of course, there's another article here. Let me share this with you as well. And so this article here came out over the weekend, rather. It says more countries ditch dollar amid growing calls for reshaping global financial system. And this was primarily focused on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who spoke last Saturday, basically saying that even he himself is dialing back his country off utilizing the dollar. And then a couple other countries also jumping on board. And the primary reason these individuals who are quoted in this article here, they're talking about, and Latin American countries primarily, that they're concerned about the sanctions and how if they don't play ball with the U.S., they'll experience they will be punished ultimately for not going along with the current agenda. And so weaponization of the dollar. I mean, it's just, system reshape. So there's a unified shift by all those countries in red that I just showed that all are, they're in agreement upon why they must shift away from the current hegemonic powers of the Western Hemisphere. And so between the debt ceiling, these events here, like I can see this debt ceiling being utilized as a catalyst because the Eastern world have already made decisions to begin moving away from as best as they can. And so they can't stop it ultimately. And so why not just bring it down and then use it as an excuse with some type of event in between, which would then lead to all the financial structure of our country being restructured, reshaped. And of course, the solution will be we need to help our people. We need to get funds into the hands of our people. Yada, 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 yada. You know how it goes. So, but anyway, these are events that are happening in real time. And then here's something else. Houthis sign deal with China for oil exploration in Yemen. And so Saudi Arabia and Yemen have pretty much called a ceasefire, even though it's not complete as of yet. But we have China moving in to untapped resources. So Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen for the last decade ultimately was to try to gain or steal Yemenis oil because their oil reserves are largely untapped. And so they dialed back. Saudi's dialing back, but now China apparently wants to move in, and they'll have a large resource there in Yemen because it is ultimately untapped energy. And so it's just deals being done, agreements being made, and the shift away from the West that would lead me to suspect why our own politicians would be in on the idea of trying to bring this thing down, but yet having an excuse because they don't want to admit that the dollar, the monetary system has ran its course, and here we are now. The world is wanting something else, an alternative of some kind. So we will see. Keep it moving. And this is another story where it just parallels with what happened to Venezuela, Zimbabwe, you name it. I mentioned 2 years ago, I think I mentioned Argentina going down the roads of Venezuela. And it says Argentina introduces a 2,000 peso banknote, and it's worth about $4. And so, as I mentioned, I don't have any on the table here, but 10 plus years ago, they had single peso, 10 peso, 20, 50, and 100. Then stuff took off. They added the 500, the 1,000, and now they're bringing in a 2,000 peso just because prices on the sticker prices of goods is going up. They don't got enough paper available. So it says central bank puts 2,000 new peso into circulation. Inflation is over 100%, is wiping out value of the peso. So once again, this would be another story where you have people going to stores to shop and they got to take all that paper with them. Colorful paper with dead presidents on it. Ain't that something? Kind of similar to what we got here. Worthless paper with dead presidents on it that is on its way out. But anyway, so these are just some headlines that caught my attention. Lots of things unfolding outside of that, but these are just some forefront things that really stood out to me. And yeah, just time's moving, man. Things are moving fast. And based upon this satellite phone situation and that concern that one individual had about basically ham radios for the internal communications for those institutions there. So it's good to have you a ham radio just in case things go out, so you'll be able to stay plugged into some type of information. Because my assumption would be some cyber event, some type of internal, whether it be a false nuclear event, those explosions happening in Denmark area, something like that. And there being just a daisy chain of events where all these G7 nations in unison decide to hit a switch. And then they'll use that as an excuse to say that Russia did it, China did it, or something else happened while they all decide to reboot the current financial structure, because every central bank is in the same boat here. All the banks right now are having some systemic issues underneath the surface. So what better time to reboot and reboot the system for the most part, and then try to work on whatever comes next. So who knows? But these are just some things to really consider. But just thought I would plug in real quick, share my 2 cents on some things. Curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you like. And this week is going to be a little different for me. So I'm excited to have Tom and Andre join me to be able to share their thoughts as well. So they'll be plugging in behind the scenes just because there'll be more opportunities to connect with you guys and help produce greater content. So I'm definitely happy to have those guys join me. They'll be streaming in my absence. So anyway, everybody be blessed, be safe. I will see you guys in the near future. Anyway, be blessed, be safe. See you guys later. Shalom.
China's hoarding a massive amount of food. They will soon have over 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China lies. So what does China know that we don't? China is the world's #1 importer, relying on the rest of the world to keep their people fed. This makes them the canary in the coal mine when it comes to global food shortages. As Americans, we need to be prepared for potential food shortages. That's where 4 Patriots survival food comes in. Their kits are compact, stackable, and have received a 5-star review for their flavor and taste. And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase by using code RTD at checkout at 4patriots.com. Don't wait. Prepare today. Once again, use code RTD at 4patriots.